Najong. The theme of today's event is Together We Can Carry On General Vang Pau's Dream and Legacy. I'd also like to acknowledge that my wife Georgie is here, and she's been at my side through all our life with Hmong over the last 20-some years, and so I want to make sure that she knows that. The French defeat at Dien Bien Phu in 1954 ultimately led to France's withdrawal from Indochina, leaving Laos and much of Southeast Asia vulnerable to the occupation of the Viet Minh. President Dwight Eisenhower and John Kennedy sought to contain the expansion of the communist Viet Minh and looked to Laos as the barrier between Vietnam and the rest of Southeast Asia. A CIA operative, William Laird, heard of the exploits of a young Lao military officer who had come to the aid of the French at Dien Bien Phu. That young officer was Vang Pao. Laird sought out Vang Pao, and as a result, Vang Pao led the U.S. Secret Army during the war in Southeast Asia. Vang Pao, who is considered one of the greatest military strategists of the 20th century. I think you heard about William Colby's statement about him being the greatest hero of the Vietnam War. And his secret army were tasked with interrupting North Vietnamese supplies that were being shipped down the Ho Chi Minh Trail, rescue downed American pilots, and stopping the North Vietnamese armies from taking Laos and moving into Thailand and other parts of Southeast Asia. The secret army is credited with saving the lives of thousands of U.S. soldiers. 32,000 Hmong, Minh, Khmer, and Lao lost their lives in the battle to save Southeast Asia from the communists. After the U.S. pulled out of Southeast Asia, General Vang Pao and his army bravely held on until overwhelmed by the Viet Minh and Pathet Lao. Facing certain death for themselves and their families, they fled Laos, only to end up in refugee camps in Thailand. Some 300,000, mostly Hmong, after spending years in the refugee camps in Thailand, were able to come to the United States. This great military leader, Vang Pao, was now tasked with helping his people immigrate to a strange land among people who did not understand their culture, nor their sacrifices they made, or their role in world history. Like no other leader of an immigrant people, Vang Pao had a dream for their future. For Vang Pao, the future of the Hmong lay in their assimilation into the American culture. He sought unity and education as the key to the fulfillment of that dream. His legacy stands before me today. Like no other immigrant group, in the few years the Hmong have been in this country, have they woven themselves into the fabric of our communities and indeed the nation. Hundreds of Hmong doctors, lawyers, now judges, legislators, community leaders, teachers, business leaders, police officers, and thousands of other college graduates now serve this great nation. They are a great asset to this great nation. There's one group of these immigrants without, whose sacrifice would be no fulfillment of Vang Pao's dreams. I've done this before. I'm going to ask that the veterans, and we've had many of them stand here, the veterans of that secret war, to please stand for a moment so we may acknowledge you. Thank you. You may be seated. I want this community, and indeed the younger generation of Hmong, to look upon the sacrifices these that are standing have made. Without these sacrifices, it would be a darker place. Without those sacrifices, there would be no future for the Hmong. Without these sacrifices, Vang Pau's dream would never become a reality. I have often said that I am a veteran of the war in Southeast Asia, but I have not earned the privilege of standing on the same ground as these brave men and women. Alas, we're getting older. There are fewer of us today. I remember in 1997, 4,000 Secret War veterans standing in the Washington Mall, marching past the Vietnam War Memorial, past the Lincoln Monument, over the Potomac to Arlington National Cemetery. There, you were honored by a small memorial which honors them and their bravery. In that same year, attending the Hmong New Year celebration in Fresno and seeing over 10,000 veterans standing in their fatigues while waiting to hear encouraging words from the father of their nation, General Vang Pao. It is one of the greatest honors of my life to have had General Vang Pao as a friend. I miss him. Veterans, it is time for you and me to pass the torch to a new generation. You've paved the way. It is now time for them to run with that torch, proving the sacrifices you have made were not in vain. They are now the keepers of Vang Pau's dream. They and future generations are Vang Pau's legacy. May God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America. Thank you.